The 1st of September, 1939. After a false accusation that the Poles attacked a German radio station, Nazi Germany launches a retaliatory campaign against Poland, triggering World War II. After defeating the Polish army, the Germans ruthlessly suppress the Poles, whom they consider to be racially inferior. And in the weeks following the German attack on Poland, German SS, police, and military units shoot thousands of Polish civilians, including many members of the Polish nobility, clergy, and intelligentsia. Approximately 1.8 million Jews remaining within the area occupied by Germany are imprisoned in ghettos, and after the German invasion of the Soviet Union, in June 1941, over 3 million Polish Jews are deported to Nazi concentration camps. One of them is Stanisław Szmajzner. Stanisław Szmajzner, one of 3 children of Jewish parents, was born on the 13th of March 1927 in the town of Puławy, Poland. Prior to the Second World War, anti-Semitism in Poland had been growing, and Polish authorities had taken various measures to exclude Jews from key sectors of society. Some Polish politicians even pressed for the mass emigration of Poland's Jewish population. Stanisław's parents were religious, and they spoke Yiddish and Hebrew at home. 3,600 Jews lived in Puławy, out of an overall population of approximately 12,000, and Stanisław Szmajzner, who lived in the town together with his brother, sister, and parents, would later recall that he felt strong anti-Semitism in Puławy since he was a kid. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Warsaw suffered heavy air attacks and artillery bombardment, and German troops entered the capital on the 29th of September, shortly after its surrender. The campaign in Poland ended on the 6th of October the same year, with Germany and the Soviet Union dividing and annexing the whole of the country. The unit of Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, occupied Puławy from mid-September 1939, and the Jewish population was immediately confronted with violence. Some German soldiers entered Jewish homes at night and took whatever valuables they could find. They brutally beat Jews whom they found on the streets and took away many for forced labor. Women, for example, were ordered to remove their clothes and use them to clean the floors in German offices. Elderly Jewish men were driven from the synagogue in their prayer shawls on Shabbat and compelled to clean toilets with their bare hands. German soldiers also humiliated Jews by cutting off the beards of Jewish men. By the end of October 1939, the German administration ordered the Jews to move to a specially designated quarter, located in a pre-war district inhabited mostly by impoverished Jews. The ghetto spanned an area which was about 1/5 of the total size of Puławy. However, the ghetto in Puławy was short-lived and was the first ghetto to be liquidated in the Lublin district. On the 26th of December 1939, posters were put up by the Germans giving the Jews, including Stanisław Szmajzner and his family, 48 hours to pack their belongings in preparation for resettlement. However, the Jews did not enjoy the promised 48 hours, as the Germans started the action on the night of the 27th of December 1939, when German police units stormed the ghetto and searched Jewish homes with their dogs. They ordered men from their beds onto the streets and ordered women to pack up belongings. This expulsion was accompanied by savage beatings and screaming. The German police units ordered the men to stand in a row on Lublin Street, the main street in Puławy, facing the buildings with their arms raised, and to sing in the freezing cold till morning. Because they had been dragged from their beds, many were dressed only in nightclothes. The Germans guarding them beat them savagely, whilst SS men standing nearby photographed the beatings. The German police locked the infirm and physically handicapped Jews in the unheated synagogue, where they all almost froze to death. The resettlement took place the next morning, when at 8 a.m., the men held captive along Lublin Street were marched all together to Opole. Along the way, some of the German guards brutally beat them. The women were given until noon to vacate Puławy, and most were forced to walk the 20 miles to Opole with their luggage, as only a few managed to hire wagons. Many infants died from the exposure along the road. After Szmajzner's family and some 2,500 Jews arrived in the Opole ghetto, they faced many grave problems, such as no flats, no food, no medicine, and the lack of personal hygiene care products. Workers had to work in sugar factories or were hired for cleaning works, road construction, and various forest and agricultural jobs. Due to being trained as a goldsmith, Stanisław was able to earn a piece of bread for his family. The first mass deportations of people confined in the Opole Ghetto started in the spring of 1942. On the 31st of March of that year, a group of 1,950 people were shipped to the Belzec killing center, and in May of the same year, around 2,000 people were sent to the gas chambers at Sobibor. German SS and police officials conducted deportations to Sobibor between May 1942, when the regular gassing operations began, and the fall of 1943. Most of the Jews brought to Sobibor were immediately gassed by carbon monoxide, which had been piped into the gas chambers from an engine. About 250,000 victims were murdered in this killing center. Approximately 50 German and Austrian personnel served at the site and were generally of lower middle-class backgrounds. When the 15-year-old Szmajzner arrived in Sobibor in a cattle wagon on the 12th of May 1942, everyone was herded off the train. Szmajzner would later recall that getting out of the wagons was already difficult, as the SS shot at people in his transport, telling them to walk as fast as they could. Men and women were separated, and Gustav Wagner, a deputy commander of Sobibor, who was in charge of selecting which prisoners from the newly arrived transports would be sent to death or used as slave laborers in and outside of the camp, started to pick out cobblers, tailors, and carpenters. At that moment, Szmajzner stepped out of line and walked to Wagner, saying that he had been trained to be a goldsmith and could make all sorts of golden objects. When Szmajzner showed Wagner the products he had done, he picked Stanisław and his three brothers out, and they had to stand in a separate corner while the other men were taken out of the camp. The three brothers were actually Stanisław's brother and two cousins. At that moment, Szmajzner had no idea that Sobibor was the extermination camp. A few days later, he got a note from a Ukrainian guard, which said, "Say Kaddish for your family." Kaddish is the Jewish prayer that you say when someone has passed away. He was not sure if to say Kaddish for his father, mother, or everyone. Given a makeshift goldsmith workshop, he was tasked by Wagner to create golden accessories for the members of the SS at Sobibor, using stolen coins, jewelry, or dental gold of the murdered victims. Orders including rings displaying SS runes and an ornamental knob for the whip used by Kurt Bolender in beating the prisoners. Under Franz Stangel's command of the camp, Szmajzner was made foreman in a mechanic's workshop, tasked with general maintenance. Later, he and others were forced to produce the mines laid around the camp's outer fence. His job gave him wide access, except for Camp 3, the area of gassing and burning of victims. In the summer of 1943, rumors began to circulate that Sobibor would soon cease operations, and the prisoners understood that this meant certain death for all of them. The Sobibor prisoners knew this since the Belzec prisoners, who had done the same work as they did, had sewn messages into their clothing before they were killed by the Sobibor guards, who had shot them the same day they arrived in the camp. The next day, the Sobibor prisoners found all their clothes full of blood. Chaim Engel, a Polish Jewish prisoner, found a note in a pocket which said, "We worked at Belzec for 1 year and did not know where we would be sent next. They said it would be Germany. Now we are in Sobibor and know what to expect. Be aware that you will be killed also. Avenge us." And they did. In September 1943, 20 Jewish Red Army prisoners of war, the soldiers who had the necessary expertise to pull off an escape, arrived at Sobibor on a transport from the Minsk Ghetto and were selected for labor. One of them, Alexander Paczerski, would become a leader of the revolt, which began late in the afternoon on the 14th of October 1943. If they were to succeed, everything had to be kept secret. The Germans were extremely punctual, and this is how they were able to plan this revolt. In the advent of the revolt, Stanisław Szmajzner was part of a group of 4 prisoners that killed the camp's chief capo to prevent denunciation. For armament, the team at his workshop stole and hid several carpentry axes that had been sent for sharpening. The targets were carefully selected, and the first person to be assassinated by the prisoners was the deputy commander of Sobibor, Johann Niemann, who was the highest-ranking SS officer on duty that day. Niemann was killed by a Jewish Red Army prisoner, Alexander Shubayev, who buried the axe into the back of his head, splitting his skull open. 1 hour after the uprising began, a total of 11 SS officers were killed by the rebels. Szmajzner fired his rifle 4 times. One of the bullets hit one of the guards in the watchtower, who fell on the ground and was killed on the spot. It was the first time that Stanisław had used a firearm. Chaos then took over. The prisoners had to escape by climbing over a barbed wire fence or by running out the main gate through a minefield under heavy machine gun fire. Some stepped on mines, some gave up and did not run at all. Stanisław Szmajzner was lucky not to be in the first group to run, as many of those stepped onto mines and died, or got tangled up and died in the barbed wire. Stanisław ran into the woods and kept running. For 7 days and nights, his group of approximately 15 prisoners walked, often waist-deep in water. After some time, they ran into a group of Polish partisans whom they wanted to join. However, the partisans shot at them, killing 12 of them. The other 3, Szmajzner, a tailor, and a man named Meyer, survived because they pretended to be dead. Approximately 300 prisoners were able to escape from Sobibor, but most of those were chased down and killed. Those prisoners who had not joined the escape were killed as well, but some 50 of the escapees did survive the war. After the end of the war, Stanisław lived in Italy, Austria, and other countries looking for family members, only to discover that all of his relatives and friends had died in the Holocaust. However, he managed to contact his godparents, a couple of Polish Jews who had escaped Nazism by fleeing to Brazil and had lived in São Paulo ever since. He arrived in Brazil in 1947. He would later recall, "No one pointed a finger at me for being a Jew." In Rio de Janeiro, Szmajzner opened his own jewelry store, which had 8 rooms and was one of the largest in the city. He married a woman named Noemia, with whom he lived for 13 years and had 2 sons. It was Stanisław Szmajzner who in 1967 exposed Franz Stankel, a former commandant of Sobibor. In May 1978, he also confirmed the identity of Gustav Wagner in a São Paulo police station. Szmajzner, who lost all his family in the Holocaust, never fully recovered from the horrors he experienced in Sobibor. The dark memories never left him, and his mood often swung to a somber tone. Szmajzner felt the need to talk about what he had experienced and brought it up every day, according to Francisca de Oliveira, his second wife. In one of his interviews, Szmajzner made an appeal to people saying, "Don't ever let fascism back into this world. Let's do everything we can to prevent a second Holocaust. Jews, Catholics, Protestants, whatever religion or whatever skin color, everyone has the right to live in this world." Francisca lived with Szmajzner until the 3rd of March 1989, when he died in the Brazilian city of Goiânia at the age of 61. She later said, "There was a sadness in his smoky brown eyes that never went away, even when he was nervous or laughing. Suddenly, he said, 'I am in Sobibor now.'" There were many tears shed for Stanisław Szmajzner. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.